Hello my fellow animal lovers and history buffs. Today's tale gallops straight out of the Twilight Zone. It's a curious case about a horse who once had thousands convinced that she could read minds, solve crimes and even predict the future. This is the story of Lady Wonder. Lady was born in 1924 in Richmond, Virginia. Her owner, Claudia Fonda, hand-reared the young filly, claiming from early on that Lady was no ordinary horse. By the age of 2, Lady was apparently spelling out words using alphabet blocks and nudged the letters with her nose to answer questions. Before long, Claudia and her husband built a custom contraption, a kind of a horse-sized typewriter with metal cards bearing letters and numbers which Lady could then flip with the tap of her snout. It wasn't long before word spread about Lady's skills. It's estimated that over 150,000 people came to test Lady's abilities, each paying $1 to ask 3 questions. Lady became a media sensation, not just for her spelling, but she would tackle grammar, arithmetic, and even world events. For example, she correctly predicted the winner of the 1927 Dempsey-Tunney boxing match, and she forecast political elections, stock trends, and even hurricanes. However, Lady's most famous moment came in 1951 when a 4-year-old boy named Danny disappeared in Quincy, Massachusetts. The police were desperate for leads and turned to Lady. When they asked her about where the boy might be, she tapped out a chilling phrase: Pittsfield Water Wheel. Now, there was no such place, but there was a wild water quarry in Pittsfield, so investigators searched the site and heartbreakingly they found the boy's body. The media leapt on the story. One headline read, "Horse solves mystery, psychic powers or clever trick." Suddenly, Lady was a national sensation. Then, 4 years later, in 1955, Lady was once again consulted for the search of a missing boy in Indiana. She provided details that some claimed helped locate the child's body. So, was Lady truly psychic, or was something else going on? Well, let's trot back to the early 1900s and meet another famous horse known as Clever Hans. Hans belonged to Wilhelm von Osten, a German school teacher who claimed his horse could do maths, spell and understand German. Hans would tap out with his hoof to answer questions. But it turned out that Clever Hans wasn't as clever as we thought. He wasn't actually solving anything. Instead, Hans was reading subtle clues from his handler, such as a flick of an eyebrow or a shift in posture, tiny unconscious movements that told Hans when to stop tapping. This became known as the Clever Hans effect, and we see it all the time in training with our animals. However, was this something similar that was going on with Lady Wonder? So to test this hypothesis, in 1928, a parapsychologist called Joseph Banks Rhines from Duke University began studying Lady Wonder to test for any signs of extrasensory perception. Now, the initial results were impressive, but there was a catch. The experiments weren't fully blinded. In other words, Claudia Fonda, Lady's owner, would often be in Lady's view. So could she be giving those subtle cues unconsciously? And it wasn't always clear whether the researchers themselves knew the correct answers they were testing with Lady. So when the researchers introduced stricter protocols, including limiting Claudia's presence and using sealed envelopes to ensure no one present knew the answers, Lady Wonder's performance tanked. So Rhine eventually acknowledged that their results could be explained by subtle and unconscious cueing by the humans to Lady, meaning they couldn't find any evidence that Lady did indeed possess ESP. Later, skeptics included magicians like Milburn Christopher and John Scarn, who had sharp eyes for illusion. And Christopher once pretended to write the number 1, but actually shaped out the number 9, and still Lady spelt out the number 9. Yet Scarn noticed that Claudia Fonda was giving micro cues, barely perceptible movements with her riding crop that may have guided Lady's responses. So the magicians concluded that Lady Wonder was very well trained, but not telepathic or clairvoyant. Despite these doubts, Lady continued her public appearances until she died in 1957, aged 33. So was Lady Wonder truly psychic, or was it actually Claudia who had ESP? Or was this a case of Lady Wonder being really good at reading subtle human cues? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this story, please give it a like, share it with another fellow animal lover and history buff, and hit the subscribe button for more weird and wonderful tales from animals in history.